So then the next thing that we're going to look at, is principles for improving executive function skills. So when we're improving executive function skills, there's really 5 different principles with executive function skill. So what you want to do when you're trying to improve executive function skills is you want to teach the deficit skill. You want to consider the developmental level. You want to move from external supports to internal. And what that means is visual supports, strategies, checklists, all these different things that you're going to provide as external supports, and gradually move for those to be internalized because the person has done them enough. Think about it. The first time you maybe lived in a new city, you had to maybe look at a map to get around. You had to have somebody maybe help you. You had to do some different things. And then you were like, oh, I've got this. So you then internalized those external supports. Heidi, did your partner want to jump in and give your idea that you posted of the volition, why you would want to do the leaves? I loved it. Heidi put to be able to jump in the pile of leaves. I love that. I love that. All right. So we'd move from external to internal supports. Also, when we're improving executive function skills, we would modify the tasks to meet the student's capacity for effort. We don't want to do things that are absolutely outside of their abilities physically or different things. So we want to make sure we're modifying that so that it is accessible to the individual. And also we want to use the student's desire for control. When my son was young, my son, who will be actually 28th at the end of this month, was the first grandchild. And my mom used to always tell me that we were too easy on him. You know, we let him make too many choices. We gave him too many choices. And I said, you know, Mom, I know what my end goal is. My end goal is that he gets upstairs and goes to bed. How he gets there, I don't really care. So I will give him choices. Does he want to hop? Does he want to roll? What does he want to do? To give him that desire to control, to get to my end goal, which is go upstairs and go to bed. So giving students some of that control when you can, know what your goal is and what are those things around it that they can maybe have control over. So these are principles for including or improving executive function skills. So now I want to look at best practice in AAC development. And I've lined them up across from each other because this is how they fit together. So when we're teaching a deficit skill for executive function skills, we do that. That's similar to best practice in AAC because we teach the system, right? We use it, we model it. We don't just hand a student a system and go, there you go, and walk away and expect them to use it, right? Well, some people do, unfortunately, but we know we have to teach the system. We know we have to be modeling. We know we have to be using aided language. We have to be picking vocabulary, and we have to be doing these things. And then when we consider their developmental level, we do this in working on different functions of language. The system we select, we're looking at developmental level. What core words we focus on, we're looking at that. And then when we move from external to internal, we're doing this by providing visual supports. Maybe you're doing some visual supports for the student that tell them, you know, that maybe you've taken screenshots of some things and you're showing them how different things connect together on paper so that then they can go to a more robust system and do that independently. Maybe you're doing some pairing of some actual pictures with the icons or something. So you're giving them some kind of visual supports. Color coding, you know, our systems are color coded. We use yellow for pronouns, we use green for our verbs. And so doing that color coding helps with that internalizing, because if I'm going to do an action, I know I just need to look for a green word. Okay. Aided language does that. We pull back prompts as the student learns. We may not do as many prompts for the student. We may give more pauses, we may increase some different expectations as they move to internalize those different things. And then when we look at that principle of executive function, which is modify the task, what that looks like in AAC development is different system setups. Are we looking at motor planning? Are we looking at categories, topic pages? Is our student a Gestalt language processor? Are we focusing on core words? And when we look at the student's desire for control, this is where we follow the student's lead on communication and we assign meaning to it. You know, if the student says apple out of the blue, we don't say, oh, that was just a mishit, you didn't mean apple. You would say, oh, are you hungry for an apple? Or we did see an apple on the apple tree today. So you're going to assign some different meaning to it. Also, this is where tiered vocabulary is important because tiered vocabulary is going to be based on the interest of the students. So you can see how these two different areas, executive function and AAC development, start to merge together. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump in and talk more specifically about the vocabulary that we use. So what's really important to know is that in order for executive function ability to increase, it is directly linked to language ability. And that doesn't necessarily mean expressive language ability. That could be mostly receptive language ability. But if you do not have schemas and plans and language to go with executive function skills, you're really not going to continue to increase and be able to be purposeful in using them. Think about if you have a student who you're wanting to do some different things with following directions and to do some purposeful action. Well, if somebody doesn't understand first, next, and then, it's kind of hard to be able to be getting those executive or be able to be getting those directions and being able to follow them because they don't have the language skills to go with them. So one of the things you will find on my website is what I call B's for communication. So B's is based on the SET, which the SET is student environment task and tool from Joy Zabala. And this uses that same format that I want you to think about. What is the behavior or what is the action or the thing that is getting in the way of the student being more independent? Maybe with communication, it's the student's not initiating. Maybe it's that the student only requests. Maybe it's that the student, you know, has just a very finite repertoire of words that they use. So what is that thing that may be getting in their way? Maybe it's a student that when things are not immediate or the student gets even a little bit upset with emotional support or emotions, that then the student has some significant meltdowns that then really get in the place of that student being able to do some other things, because as we know, behavior is communication, and we're seeing those behaviors because the student doesn't have a good communication system to support that behavior. So what executive function may be connected to the behavior you're seeing? And then what do you already have in the environment that maybe you need to be more purposeful about using? And then if you still don't have enough supports, what strategies could you put in place to teach and model the executive function skills, specifically the words that you need for that? So what I want you to do as we're going through this is think of a student that you have that uses AAC. And then what is behavior is getting in the way of that student becoming more independent? Because what we want to do is really think about that student at 25. And at 25, and that student being as independent as they possibly can be, what does that look like? And then are there some behaviors, and again, behavior is communication, are there some things that are getting in the way of that happening? And then what executive function do you think it's connected to? What are the environmental supports? What vocabulary words would you want to focus on? So this sheet is on my website. You can download it and you can go through this activity and do it on your own to make a B's plan for AAC and the skills you're going to work on. So we're going to jump into looking at the communication matrix. And I have that we're just at right about 30 minutes. So the communication matrix has 7 different levels. And the communication matrix was put together, and it's research-based and evidence-based, really focusing on that first 24 months of language development, and not just language development well, when we're looking at the language development, it's neurotypical language development. But what we know is language development happens in a routine and happens in a systematic way, regardless of whether the student is somebody that's neurotypical or not. So what we see happening is in these first 4 areas, from 0 months to 18 months, we have that pre-intentional behavior going into that conventional communication, okay? So we're kind of grouping that together as language that is in that kind of pre-symbolic range, okay? Then we're going to jump into more concrete symbols and more abstract symbols as you get to 12 months to 24 months. Okay, so again, this is neurotypical development, but many of our students are going to be developing maybe later, or as they are older, developing along these same lines. So we're going to look at those concrete and abstract symbols. And then when students have 24 months or higher, as far as language skills, that's when they really have more robust language. And they have symbols, they are able to combine 2 and 3 words together. They're able to do these different things. So as we look at these different areas, we're going to pair this with some executive function skills. So if you want to know more about this, look at the Communication Matrix website. They have great information. They have some great videos. They have great resources you can download for like $5 that give much more information on this. So we're going to kind of use these different areas from the Communication Matrix to think about this. If you have a student who is above that 24 plus month range, and you are needing to work on this, work on pragmatics with them, this is a profile, and I realize that it cut off the link, and I apologize. I'll go in and adjust that. But this is a free download. So this assessment is a free download. I have not used it, but I know people who have, who say it's really, really good. And it really gives some nice information about pragmatics, which is really what we're talking about. So as we are looking at the communication matrix, I want you to kind of keep that in mind, those 3 different areas. And then we're doing executive function skills development. Again, I knew I wanted to show you this ahead of time, and I don't expect you to be able to read it. But really what we're looking at is that first 24 months, okay? So well, actually, we're looking at more than the 24 months. So I'll kind of explain that on the next slide. But we're going to be looking at these different areas. So we have, this one is 0 to 24 months, and these are different executive function skills. So we have planning, time management, task initiation, and they go across and they tell you what does that look like at that age. Then we have toddler, which is 2 to 4 years, and early learner, which is 5 to 12 years. I don't go past that, because really, if you have a student whose language skills are equivalent to somebody who's 12 years old, possibly, very likely, most likely, they're not going to be using an AAC system. And if they have that much language, they're going to have many of the words that we're talking about that that you really need for executive function skills. So if we're looking developmentally 0 to 24 months, which would be in that communication matrix level of 1 to 4, that first area that I had that I think was red, and then those next 2 areas, that 5 and 6, which is the concrete abstract symbol level. This is what they're doing executive function wise. So 0 to 24 months, individuals are planning by pointing, grabbing, they're acting on their environment, they're seeing something, they're accessing it, right? Organizing, you begin to have some matching skills. You're going to be seeing colors and shapes and early categories develop. This is where you see the child learns the word dog, and then everything that has 4 legs is a dog for a while, until this child starts to make that category bigger and realize, oh, we also have cats, we also have cows, we have horses, because they're getting more language and they're being exposed to that. We also then have overgeneralization of categories, which is just what I talked about. Working memory, you start to see this in early recall games. They participate and enjoy simple and familiar routines and songs and rhymes, right? This is where you can begin to do fill in the blanks. When my son was little, we sang the song, A is for apple, B is for ball. And we would say, A is for, and we would pause, and he would say apple, B is for ball. And that was just working memory. That was just doing recall. So that's within the first 24 months. Those are the executive function skills you see. And these are the communication levels that fall within that. Then when we get to developmentally age 2 to 4 years, we are seeing that levels 5 and 6, the concrete symbol, abstract symbol, and going into that language. Because remember, the communication matrix only goes up to 24 months, but we also know our students are going to have some holes. We're going to have some Swiss cheese here and there that may not be fully filled in. But if we have a student that's developmentally in that 2 to 4 year range, these are the kinds of things we can expect with executive function skills. Some planning, time management. We're starting to get some time concepts. We're starting to get waiting is emerging. Task initiation, maybe being able to do a task up to 10 minutes. We have that categorization. We're starting to see patterns. Working memory follows along with finger play. Emotional control, they're able to label their own emotions. They're able to label the emotions of others. This is a time where a child may see somebody crying and they're happy crying, and the child thinks that they're sad because they know crying equals sad. And then they start to learn and understand that there's different aspects of emotions that look different ways. So these are the kinds of things that developmentally are happening age 2 to 4 years that are within that communication matrix level of 5, 6, and 7. And then when we get to developmentally 5 to 12 years, this is going to be your student that is a level 7 on the communication matrix because they have language. They're putting 2 and 3 words together. They have a more robust vocabulary. And we're going to be seeing more depth and more involvement when it comes to executive function skills. We're going to see following steps to meet an end goal. Play games requiring strategy. I'm going to hold on to my green cards because I know you have some greens, or, whatever those different things. Time management, beginning to develop a sense of time and manage their leisure time, what they want to do. Task initiation, being able to independently start something and maybe complete a task that takes 30 to 60 minutes. Organization, sequencing stories, following checklists, simple checklists, emotional control. They are learning to self-soothe themselves and control the tantrums and emotional dysregulation that they have in that 5 to 12 years. You're not going to see them reacting the same way a 2 to 4 year old is, because they're able to start doing those self-soothing things. And again, this is going to be connected to that more robust language that the child has. So when we look at these things, we really want to be making sure we're using visual supports. We know this. Visual supports are so, so important, but they're even more important for our students who have more complex needs because of all these 9 reasons. And this is from North Star Paths, there's an S on the end, .com, and it's a free download. I had never heard of them, and then saw this on maybe, I don't know, Facebook or something like that, and then went to their website, and they have so many wonderful resources. So I encourage you to go to their website and look at it. But as you look at this, the reasons we use visuals is visuals are permanent. Visuals allow for that time for language processing. They allow the student to be able to prepare for the transitions. They help reduce anxiety. If we use visuals in our day all the time, and I use this example, I'll go ahead and throw it in now. I use this example that if you have a favorite place to go for coffee in the morning, and suddenly the sign for that location, I'm going to say Dunkin' Donuts. Maybe you go to Dunkin' Donuts for coffee every morning, and suddenly the sign, your visual for Dunkin' Donuts is gone. The store is not gone, just the sign is gone. You're going to have a moment of anxiety because you're going to be like, oh my gosh, when did it close? What am I going to do? I'm going to be running late. But it's still there, but the visual just disappeared. So that's why we want to make sure we have visuals, that we keep them in place for our students, that we don't pull them away just because we think they know it. Because again, when your anxiety is high or something is suddenly gone and you don't have that visual connection, that can be really difficult. So we want to make sure that we are providing visuals. So these are 11 executive function skills that they talk about in the book, Smart But Scattered. And I really like these 11 executive function skills because they really get into breaking things apart. It's kind of like somebody saying, oh, we have a student who needs support in reading, but they're not specific about what they mean. That's why we need to be specific with executive function skills. We're going to focus on these first 4 executive function skills, which are response inhibition, working memory, emotional control, and sustained attention, and talk about the vocabulary that are needed for these different skills.